Welcome back to another episode of Rants, and today we're going to be talking about Valve and how Valve has stagnated in the gaming industry. So, to start off, let's talk about Valve's history as a company. Well, Valve have been known as the innovators of the gaming industry early on when they actually made video games when they weren't raking money off the players. So let's look at the Half-Life series. The Half-Life series brought an interesting way to play games. It was less about cutscenes, more about gameplay. There was a focus on the source engine with the physics of the games and how that would work. So obviously, when it comes to Valve, they were great at that. Now, when it came to the multiplayer games, and as someone speaking now who's played Team Fortress 2 and Counter Strike, well, as a live service, CS:GO and Team Fortress 2 have really stagnated, and it's mostly, I'd argue, it's to how Valve operates as a company, as someone that did BTech business. So one thing we learnt about was, well, different types of leadership, and in Valve they have a laissez-faire approach to everything, and hence the term Valve time being a thing. So with a Valve time, it meant that they'd take as long as they wanted on projects, and this was really the case with Half-Life. Although the Half-Life series as games were very well polished and uh, great games to play, they didn't necessarily arrive on time, and I get why Valve were trying to polish those games. When it comes to Valve time between, let's say, 2012 and 2020 now, Valve's focus was really off the ball when it came to making new games and as well as concentrating on their live services as games. For Team Fortress 2 and CS, there was a focus on skins and hats and not necessarily improving the game. There was a massive focus on, well, there was a massive complaint from the CS community that Valve doesn't listen to them. And I'd argue that as a business model, it was to them scaling down and allowing their employees to move to whatever projects they wanted. And that was annoying. Now, you see, with the issue with Valve now is we're now in a situation where Valve no longer has a monopoly on the gaming market via Steam. They can no longer rake money off their live services, CS and Team Fortress 2, because they now have competition in the form of Overwatch and Valorant. Now, when Overwatch came out and Valve tried to do updates for the games, well, the updates for the games, such as providing a competitive game mode for Team Fortress 2, were trash. They shouldn't have been added at all. They didn't concentrate on actually updating gameplay mechanics for competitive. In Overwatch, there's attack defend, basically what Team Fortress 2 had, but that wasn't implemented in competitive. They decided to bring King of the Hill, and all the communities that do competitive Team Fortress 2, such as Highlander and whatnot, are all third-party providers. And while Overwatch has a very tight grasp on its esports scene, Team Fortress 2 basically doesn't have an esports scene. Not that I know of, or if there is one, it's very unknown. And now we're at a point with CS:GO is now trying to compete with Valorant. Woohoo! Valve updated the game in April to provide new maps, and to clean up these said new maps, they tried to add a scrimmage mode, which is basically the equivalent of unrated in Valorant. And let's be honest, scrimmage is garbage. there are none of the classic maps in Scrimmage, such as Dust 2 and, well, Mirage, etc., etc. And it's annoying because the CS community has been asking for unrated 5v5 for ages now. Basically, the rules are competitive, but there's no rank. I left CSGO for Rainbow Six specifically for that reason. I could play Rainbow Six more casually, and now because they've added unranked, I play a lot with the Rexit Boomer, and it's a lot of fun. I learn the competitive side of Rainbow Six in a more casual format in the style of unranked. And this is the problem with Valve. Valve doesn't listen to the community or even the pro players, and that's why, in my opinion, CS:GO is slowly dying. It's going to be overtaken by Valorant, and Riot Games, the people that own Valorant, they're very good with esports. If we look at the LEC, they have a massive grasp on it, and other companies have tried to implement their esports model, and we can see that with Overwatch or Call of Duty, oh gosh, in the form of Activision Blizzard having, well, trying to take direct control of their esports scenes. But the way Riot does it is they always think of pro play first and what the community wants first. Valve doesn't give a shit. They're sat on their asses for 5 years doing nothing, raking in money, and now that they no longer have a monopoly on these games, on these type of specifically team shooter games in the form of Team Fortress 2 and Overwatch, and tactical shooter games in the form of Valorant and CSGO, they're scared. And now that Valve has started to topple, we're seeing former CS pros like Hiko, other people that have been very important in the CS:GO scene. They've quit CS:GO and they've moved to Valorant, and that is the spit in the face, literally, that Valve is getting for their lack of action on providing a good game in the form of CS:GO. Sure, we can talk about them loving Dota. I mean, let's be honest, Dota is basically Valve's brainchild. But these former pros like Hiko, they felt like they've been left behind. And Valve are getting a slap for it. They really are. Now that we're seeing that they've come out with Half-Life Alyx, I think they're giving a shit. I think they actually fucking care about their community now because they're losing money to Activision Blizzard and Riot Games. And that's what the gaming industry needs. No more monopolies, no more stagnation. And now that Riot Games and Activision Blizzard, although I'm going to be honest, I don't exactly like Activision Blizzard, are coming into the scene, it's good, fresh new ideas and competition, and thank God for that. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this shitty rant. I fucking hate my life, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Hail Hydra.